So you've got your guitar tuner, you get your guitar in tune, and then you play another chord and it sounds out of tune. Why is that then? Why can't the tuner be the answer to all the problems of guitar? Well, it can't. Let's have a look. Here then I've got three guitars. I've got an electric, a semi-acoustic and a fully acoustic guitar. So the three different sort of families of guitar, if you will. And going from here, we have the most adjustable in terms of things to do with string height and all of that, to a medium adjustable to not very adjustable. So how can we make this one work then? Well, let's begin with this one, because actually the processes and the principles behind what a guitar is are very important to understand. So we've got the 6-string acoustic guitar. This is an Echo from the 1970s. And as you can hear, it's quite accurate. Now, one of my theories is that it has a 0 fret. Just where the nut is, there is a fret that actually marks the 0 point. Usually a guitar will just have the nut, which is 0, but I think a fret, if it's installed correctly, will give you the accuracy that you need. Now, there's no adjustment on this guitar in terms of the string length. There's a little bit for height, and on an acoustic guitar you'll always have an adjustment for the truss rod, usually under a little plate here or sometimes under the neck here. What we're looking for really is for the neck to actually rise slightly towards the end, so that when you look down the guitar, the neck does a very gentle curve up to this being the highest point, so that the action is of medium height. We don't want an action that's far too low because you get fret buzzing, and also the tone of the guitar is impaired. We don't want the action to be too high either because it'll be hard to play and it won't be in tune. So what's all this tuning business and intonation mean then? Well, 12th fret on a guitar, the 12th fret harmonic, which should be where 12th fret is, and it pretty much is exactly halfway between the 0 and the bridge. That's kind of how it works. So if this note is sharp, for example, it means the string isn't long enough. It means that essentially the frets are going that way. That's a problem. So on a guitar like this, you can't adjust it. Well, you can if you're a luthier, if you're really, really good at your craft, but it's not something that you should attempt yourself. Electric guitars, it's a bit different. We'll come on to that in a second. So the idea is that when you're tuning up a guitar, let's say you're doing this without a tuner, you can use the harmonic method, which is 5th fret on the 6th string and 7th fret on the 5th string. Just hovering with your finger just above the fret makes the string actually vibrate at a different partial, a different harmonic from the fundamental. So we have this. Etc. The harmonics theoretically never end, but of course they get hard to play and the string itself can't vibrate at that sort of high frequency. So we've got here, that's the first harmonic, then the second, and then the third. Now the third harmonic and the second harmonic on these two different strings should be the same. If they're not the same, you end up with this. Where you get a sort of a warbling sound, and when that warbling stops and you've got exactly the same note, you're in tune. Now if you repeat this for the next pair of strings, that's pretty good. Now the next pair of strings, the second and third strings, because the interval is different, we've got a major third instead of a perfect fourth, it means that you're going to have to use the fret method, which is 4th fret on the 3rd string compared with 2nd string open. It's not far off. Now of course you can't tune up while you're listening to it, you have to sort of make an adjustment and then have another go. Okay, now the last pair of strings, you can go back to your other method. Now you get those sort of little ding ding sounds when you're tuning up. That could be down to a few different factors. It's not a huge problem if it doesn't actually exist while you're playing, but it could mean that the string is actually moving in different ways in different parts of the guitar, which itself can put the thing out of tune. Now, when I play a chord then, it should be that the first string, which is an E, and the sixth string, which is an E, are the same. They're the same note. Now it's hard sometimes to tell the difference. They are 2 octaves apart. If I were to replay that harmonic on the 6th string at 5th fret, and then play the last open string, you should get the same thing. Sometimes it's easier to play the harmonic and the open string with actually your finger instead of the plectrum, so that you don't get too many of those upper partials, which actually could confuse the issue. Now this particular guitar, I'm very lucky. I paid £25 for this at a car boot sale. It wasn't very good condition and it was filthy, but pretty good. It's pretty good and it's in tune. Now the problem that we have, of course, with a keyboard, you have the luxury of being able to tune every single note. On the guitar, you can't. You tune the string, you line it up, and then all of the frets have to conform to what's known as equal temperament, which is the tuning method that we all basically use. So that's that guitar. Now I've got a semi-acoustic here as well. This is a Epiphone Century, which is a fantastic guitar, and actually it's not too bad in tuning wise either. We have a little bit of adjustment on the tail piece here, or rather the bridge, where the bridge is actually floating and you can move it backwards and forwards. But you can't actually adjust individual adjusters. But this one has a bridge that is actually graduated. The bridge is actually in slightly different places for each string. Now the one that really creates the problem is the 3rd string, because when you play an E chord, very often that note is sharp. But if I flattened this string, if I just brought that down a bit so that was pure, we get problems in other chords. So it is completely an issue of compromise. You've just got to compromise between these chords to make it work. It's a good idea to test it with major chords, because actually minor chords are more forgiving with equal temperament than major ones are. So even if E major, that string is slightly sharp, the minor chord is more likely to work. So A minor, for example, that's going to be more forgiving than A major. Although in that particular instance, actually, they're both quite reasonable. But it's getting that compromise. Now, what you can do, and a mate of mine at school used to tune guitar, and I copy his way like 30 years later. He developed a method, and he always used to use it, and he could make the cheapest electric guitar actually pretty good. He used this method, which was 0 on the 5th fret, or 5th string, so you've got an open A, then the next 2 strings, 2 frets, 2nd fret, then the last 2 strings, or strings 1 and 2 if you're going that way, 5th fret. So that you get a chord that has no 3rd in it. If you can get that to work, and he also used to do this, 0 on the 6th string with 2nd fret on the next 2 strings, then a 4 on the 3rd string, and then a 5 on the 2nd string, and then an open 1st string. If you can get those two to sound right, the chances are that you're kind of winning with this as a thing. Now at 12th fret, this is how we basically adjust the intonation. And for this, I'm going to move on to my Strat here. where the pieces are actually movable. You can see that the bridge here has 6 completely independent pieces. So that's really what we want, ultimately, to make sure the thing is absolutely in tune. However, there is a rub with electric guitars, and it's to do with the pickups. Lots of people want to wind the pickups right close to the strings so you get more output. But actually that's a bit of a misnomer, because actually the magnetism that the strings exert on the pickup is being reversed. The pickups are now they're exerting a magnetic field on the strings. And you don't want that, because then the oscillation of that string is compromised. So the very thing that the pickup is trying to do is actually affecting the thing it's trying to pick up. That is the string. So if I just look at this, yuck. Now, of course, when you're tuning a guitar, the strings on this are getting on a bit now. I'm a bit of a stickler for, well, I'm a bit lazy about changing my strings. I only do it when I really need to. And I don't break many strings. But the age of a string is not going to help you at all. So for any serious recording work, I would either use another electric guitar that's got new strings, or indeed I put new strings on this one. I've had this guitar for 27 years, nearly, and it's great. It's my sort of workhorse. I do gigs with it. Now, the tuning thing on this becomes a bit of an issue when you think about overtones. There's a lot of overtones in that note. Now, if I turn the tone down here, I hear more of the fundamental note. However, if I turn the tone control down, it pretty much kills the first string. So it's a bit of compromise here. Now, when you use an electric guitar tuning, there's actually a few different methods besides the harmonics, which will still work anyway if I just do that quickly. Notice that I can bend the string just to take the slack up on the tuning head. Now, I used another method apart from the B string here, trying to tune that. That's okay, let's see what the chords sound like. I accidentally got it right. Okay, I didn't mean to kind of do that, but I'm going to show you another method by which you can check everything. We've got the harmonics, we've got the notes. You could play 5th fret on the 6th string, and then an open string. Now this, of course, depends on your frets being in the right place, but of course they have to be anyway. So we could check our intonation, which is 12th fret fretted, 12th fret harmonic. That's all right too. Usually you get a few problems. Sometimes the 6th string and the 5th string, the thickest wound ones, can produce problems where you end up winding the saddle piece right back to get it to actually work. Some people even cut the little spring that's on the tremolo. Now, tremolo is another problem, because if you make any adjustments with one string, of course the tremolo tension is going to change, because we've got a tug of war match between the strings on here and the springs that are behind this plate here. The idea being that the tremolo system is actually held in equilibrium. It's not right flat against the body, and it's not lifted up so far that the strings are actually doing a better work than the springs of actually keeping the thing in tune. So the other problem, of course, is the pickup. Now, I've tuned using the bridge pickup. Because actually, this harmonic, if you do the harmonic method, and if I use the neck pickup for this, which I may decide to use because of the fact that the tone is a little bit more mellow and potentially easier to hear notes. The trouble here is that the harmonic pretty much vanishes. Now the reason for that is that this harmonic appears the other side of your central position. and it happens to appear pretty much where that pickup is. Now, how a harmonic works is if you've got a string this long, you have harmonics that have what are called nodes, and that's one of the nodes there. And if at a node, you essentially get a string that's still, and the thing vibrates either side of it. And that's that point there. So that's the reason the neck pickup doesn't work. Another method is to tune in fifths. Now, I'm a violinist, so I've been tuning in strings in fifths my entire life. So you could do that as well. You could have harmonic on 6th string compared with 9th fret on the 4th string. So skip a string and then 9th fret. Not quite in there. That one's all right. Now it could be that this string, the B string, is slightly flat with respect to the first string. Except it's sharper when you do this. So, if you get slight problems like that, it may not indeed manifest itself too badly. So it's all about just checking and compromise. If you get little errors, if an error is big enough and you can reduce it while not affecting other things, you're in business. So checking it with chords all the way up as well. Now, because of the nature of this 6th string, the higher you play, the less it works in terms of its harmonic content. That's a function of string tension, of string gauge, and where you are on the guitar itself, which note it's playing. So when you're tuning something like a B here, you kind of get a false impression of what that string's actually doing. But as it happens, they're not too far away from each other. So if you're only getting tiny inaccuracies up here, actually, you're fine. So there's a little bit about guitar strings and tunings and all of those sort of methods. You can tune anything from the harmonic on the 6th string to 2nd fret on the 4th. There are slight differences, but there are going to be. The guitar and equal temperament, unfortunately, they're not best mates.